I start off?
Yeah, Terry, go ahead.
Thank you. Coach, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Thank you. I'm doing a story on J.J. Weatherholt, and I'm interested in what has made him a great player. We talk a little bit about his work ethic in previous seasons, this season, and even during the time he was injured.
Yeah, we knew JJ was going to be a good player from the time we first saw him at one of our camps down in West Virginia. Knew he was fit our recruiting philosophy just perfectly. Recruit great athletes with great work ethics, and it'll always work out. But it's impossible to predict what he's done and how much better he's gotten. You never can anticipate a guy doing what he's done, but we knew all along he was a good baseball player.
Coach,
Coach,
go ahead,
I'm
John.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'll wait.
Coach, more on what's coming. So I guess the first basic question for the tournament is how do you set up your rotation?
We don't know yet. We're going to see how everybody feels at practice here today and line it up. You know, is if I could sit here right now and really loved our chances of getting a bid to the postseason, then we'd set it up one way. But we don't know if we're fighting for our postseason lives here or not. That's just we're in that situation where we just don't know. We like to think that we could get put in, but I've thought that before and it hasn't happened. So you just never know how it's going to shake out.
Everybody's in the same boat in terms of the short time between your last regular season game and this tournament. Does that make it problematic a little bit to try to do the pitching with that, 3 days off?
Yeah, it is problematic, but it's problematic for almost everybody. But, because of the BYU being in here and moving it up a day, that's put everybody into a precarious situation pitching wise. And, the weekend that we just played going into this week is you got to try and win all those games, so you can't save any pitching waiting for the tournament. So very unusual circumstance to say the least.
Does anyone else want to jump in? Are we just jumping in or do we need to wait?
Go ahead. I got to get to practice.
Okay.
I'll jump in, Coach. JJ is a natural right-hander from what I read, but he bats left. Has he done any switch hitting at West Virginia? Is that in his future? And how's a guy able to do that and do it so well?
No, and no. Will he ever hit right-handed? Well, he's a Mountaineer, and will probably never take another right-handed at bat the rest of his natural life if I were to be a gambling man. But I'm a guy that's always up for thinking outside the box, but that would just border on insanity in my old age to put JJ at the plate right-handed.
Coach, you kind of mentioned this already about, unlike last year, you can't just rely on guaranteeing getting a bid. Maybe this is more reminiscent of even 2 seasons ago. You did talk about the rotation, but what is the message to the team? How will this maybe even change your strategy in the Big 12 tournament in terms of how much players play, depending on how games are going? Certainly right away on TCU. Do you even have a case to put your team in just on at large if need be to make sure you guys are in?
No, I think we have an unbelievable case. But
Can you expand on that case? Like, what would be your case?
I mean, went 19-11 in the Big 12 and finished in 4th place. So for them to not let us in would be a crime, really. But they've committed crimes before, so I'm not. I won't go to bed at night feeling all that great about it until I see the Mountaineers' name pop up on the screen.
What are you maybe sending a message even to your team? Because last year you could rely on that at minimum you had a share of the regular season title, you can get rings that way, etc. That's not the case this year. And last year, the team did struggle towards the end. If that occurred again, maybe a crime is committed.
No, that hasn't occurred again. We played a great weekend this past weekend.
Right. You did.
In our last regular season weekend. You know, the message to the team is different than the message to the media. You know, I need to get those guys
Sure.
fired up to play baseball. I need to get you guys to put something pretty cool on the website. But the message to the team is that this time of the year, if you're going to do anything really cool, guys have to step up that haven't played much this year or haven't done much. And we definitely got that out of Luke Lyman on Saturday. Come in and got the last out in a very precarious situation. And that guy's thrown 5 innings the whole season. So the message to the team is somebody has to play great moving down the stretch. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is, what game it is, who you're playing against. Somebody that we're not expecting has to be really, really good. And, you know, this time of the year, your best players have to play good. If your best players don't play good, it's hard to win games. So all the guys that have had good years need to do well, and somebody that hasn't played much is going to have to step up.
Hey, Randy. Okay. Randy, you kind of talked about how you don't know exactly right now how you're going to line up your pitching for this week, but I'm curious with the new format this year, specifically for you guys as the 4 seed, if you win Tuesday, you get the day off on Wednesday. Does that change how you go into a tournament or plan for this tournament, given the fact that there is that built-in day off potentially there on Wednesday?
Yeah, that would be a godsend to have that day off on Wednesday to give you a day to rest and recover. But you can't even attempt to think about that. Think about Wednesday before you think about Tuesday, you know. But yeah, it would be really, really nice for us to have that day. And TCU's in a different spot. Even if they beat us Tuesday, I don't think they can take Wednesday off. So, you know, when it comes later in the week, if you're playing in elimination games, you got to do things differently than if you have a game to play with. So to win Tuesday, take Wednesday off, and Thursday not be an elimination game, if you had to script this thing, that's how you would script it.
Hey, Coach. Hey, Coach, you've kind of held off on using Aiden Major. I know you kind of talked about a rest thing with him a couple weeks ago. Gavin Van Kempen has kind of had some rest. Just kind of wondering about what their status is heading into the Big 12.
We're still day to day on those guys.
Okay.
We're gonna see how they feel at practice today, and you know, just like when JJ was hurt, all I can tell you as I sit here right now is that they feel better this morning than they did yesterday morning. So we're gonna see how they feel every day when we go into it, see how usable they are.
And then the other thing, since this tournament has moved to Arlington, it's been kind of a house of horrors for you guys. Is that any kind of mental thing or anything that you even mentioned heading into this you know, third year here?
No, I could care less about that. The players care less about that. The team that played here 2 years ago, there's only a few players left from that team anyhow. So,
Right.
you know, with the way college baseball is now and your team from year to year being so different, past records and past history really doesn't even play a part in it. You just know when you come here, every game's going to be against a great team, and that happens.
And one last thing, the change to the format, tournament format, obviously with new teams coming into the league. I'm wondering if it's a good thing, because, you know, I think back, you know, a few years ago, you know, back when the tournament was in Oklahoma City, there was like one year we ended up playing like Texas Tech, I think 3 times in the same tournament. This new format maybe kind of changes that a little bit. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I'll probably let you know the answer to that when it's over. There's so many little idiosyncrasies to a tournament like this that things could get jacked up and you play somebody you're not expecting at a time you're not expecting. And depends on what happens in the other games. You know, the old format, not ideal to play the same team 3 times in the same tournament, but it happened because
Right.
one thing leads to another. So tournaments are a little unusual like that, but normally that is due to, you know, weather issues too, and we don't have those here. So hopefully this one will go off without a hitch, without anything crazy happening.
Thank you, Coach.
Hey, Randy, I have just a couple of questions about some pitchers here. And it kind of blends into what you've been saying about people coming out of nowhere. But Cooper and Switalski have been pretty strong for you down the stretch here. And Lyman's come a little bit out of nowhere, like you said, 5 appearances. I'm assuming different reasons for why Lyman wasn't available. But how have you how have you developed those guys over time so they're here at the end and they weren't forgotten about? They didn't fade. They weren't non-factors when you need factors.
It's amazing how a lack of playing time can really stimulate the right kind of kid to sit there and watch your other teammates do all the playing. If you're the right kind of kid in the right kind of program, that'll motivate you to be really good when you get in there. And that's what the early season's all about, is giving a lot of guys playing time and getting as many guys in the games as you can in case that situation arises. Lyman's been injured off and on, so he would have thrown more this year than under normal circumstances, but it's nice to have him healthy right now. And as you know, Switalski was a weekend starter when the season started, then got moved to the bullpen, and I think that challenged him a little bit to be good again. And last couple times out, he's been pretty good. So, you know, this time of the year, all you do as a coach, you know how good your team is. All you do as a coach is try and motivate guys in different ways. And if you can motivate guys to play hard and be good, that's half the battle here.
Griffin, if you want to ask a question.
Coach, I think you guys are 14-7 in the Big 12 since JJ came back from the injury. What effect did he have? Not so much, you know, as a ball player, but it is just in the clubhouse and those kind of things to affect the team in a positive way when he returned.
There's no doubt he's one of our team leaders, and his first game back when we played at Kansas, I think, was tells the whole story. You know, he batted leadoff, so he was the first hitter of the entire weekend. And in his first at bat after missing 25 games, he got a base hit up the middle. And I think collectively the whole team realized at that point that, okay, we got our guy back, and they all responded to him being back in the lineup. And I think everybody got a little bit better when that happened.
Griffin, I'll get to you now. Go ahead.
Yeah, Randy, Bob Hertel. Would you possibly recap how the evolution came from the kind of team you had to the one you have now? It's a totally different kind of offensive team, and did that happen by happenstance, or was that planned?
No, it's you know, you always try and coach the team you have. And we went into it, you know, we lost those 3 outfielders last year who all hit double-digit home runs and stole double-digit bases. And that was the big question mark going into the season, is who's going to play the outfield and can they do what last year's guys did? And they sure have. You know, this team has a whole different complexion. We started hitting some homers. Other guys started hitting some homers, and all of a sudden it looks like that's the kind of team you have, that everybody's capable of hitting the ball out of the ballpark, which when that happens, then the last thing you want to do is make an out stealing the base. So we would steal more bases than we do if it wasn't for the fact that the guy at the plate could potentially hit the ball over the fence. So why make an out before that happens, you know? So that we didn't go into the season thinking that we were just going to smash homers the whole year, but it looks like it's kind of gravitated a little bit that way, but it's, you don't ever coach for a homer, you know, it's first inning on Saturday against TCU, we go, first two guys making out, Sam White gets hit by a pitch, and then Chumley hits a double and Hussey hits a double, so we can win games without homers, but it's nice to know that the guy at the plate can drive runs in regardless of where base runners are at.
You mentioned you have to coach the team you have. You played 25 games without AJ and had to coach that team, yet you survived that. How important was that?
Yeah, I think we did more than survive that. It's JJ missed 25 games, Salve missed 20 games, and Cresser and Hussey have both missed double-digit games, I believe. But for us to be in the position we're in, after having said that, number one, it's incredible what the guys have done in their absence. The guys who had to step up and play in their place that wouldn't have many at-bats right now going into this tournament if it wasn't for that. But it also begs the question of how good could this team have been had all that not happened. You know, Derek Clark missing 3 weekends at the beginning. You'd like to think, now that we know how good he is at this level, you'd like to think we could have won a couple of those games that he would have pitched in back then. So this team could have, if we hadn't gone through the adversity, could have had a special season. But now that we've got everybody back, that's the team that's in place. We could have a special season moving forward here, I think.
Thanks.
If you have your hand up, I'll call on you. Griffin, you've had your hand up for a while, you can go.
Hey, Coach. You're talking about messaging to the team. How do you keep them focused and present when, barring a Big 12 tournament championship, you might have to be winning pretty for the selection committee come next month?
We don't spend a ton of time talking about it. You know, they know the drill. But our job is just to keep them focused on every pitch of every game, and you can't ignore all the other stuff because with social media, it's so in your face, and they get on all the websites and social media and see what it's all about. So it's our job to keep them focused pitch by pitch the entire tournament. Once one pitch is completed, it becomes ancient history, and all you need to worry about at that point is the next pitch. And we spend enough time talking about that to try and avoid the distractions that everybody puts in front of them.
Ryan, you can go ahead.
Coach, I got two for you if that's okay. The first is just on JJ. I mean, just here over the last week, maybe 2 weeks, it looks like he's swinging the bat a lot better than when he first came back. Are you seeing that as well? Does he just appear maybe a little bit healthier, more in the groove than he was, just say 4 weeks, 5 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think so. You know, it's just like a big leaguer in spring training. You know, that's the purpose of spring training, is to give them 50 at bats before the season starts. And that's what JJ went through, his version of spring training. When he came back, his legs weren't under him, and he was just, getting a feel for the strike zone again. And yeah, I think you're right. It appears at this point that he's swinging the bat way better now than he was at first. It takes a little while to get timing and rhythm back and that type of thing. So, yeah, it's fortunately it appears that he's seeing the ball really well right now.
And then my other question is, you've had teams make deep runs in this tournament before. Is there a common thread or a characteristic maybe of a team that allows that team to make a deep run in the tournament? And if so, do you feel you've got that type of characteristic with this year's club?
Yeah, to win games, go deep in these tournaments, you have to get your best pitchers. If they throw complete games or go 8 innings, that's a savior to the rest of the games. Using 4 or 5 guys a game isn't ideal to go deep into these tournaments. So You really want your starting pitching to save as many arms as they can. And when you get late into a tournament, you need to be able to smash the ball. And this team is capable of doing that with the unusual format. You know, the complete games for these teams probably, it's not very realistic to think that on Tuesday you're going to see a lot of complete games coming out of anybody, because very few teams are going to be able to throw the guys that are capable of doing that. So it'll be unusual to say the least. This could be the high scoring games on the front end and the back end, and the low scoring games in the middle, when everybody's weekend rotation is able to pitch in the middle of the tournament. So we'll just see how it goes, but it puts a lot of stress on you. You know, if we feel good about our chances of playing next weekend, you don't want to take your best guys and pitch them on super short rest. That would be crazy to do that and not get the most out of them. So, but on the other hand, you don't want to lose and go home without having pitched your best guys. So it's definitely some sort of a juggling act we're going to have to address.
Justin, you go ahead.
Coach, you guys obviously you took 2 out of 3 from Oklahoma earlier in the year. They get the #1 seed. Obviously had a really good conference year. You just obviously just played TCU. You know, you really outside of Texas, you guys have played everyone that made the tournament. Would you be surprised if, like, you know, whatever team ends up winning this tournament, even if it's like a TCU or a Texas Tech, would it be a shocker?
There's not a team in here that can't win this thing. That's the beauty of playing in the Big 12, that literally anybody from the #1 seed to the #10 seed can win this tournament if they get hot at the right time, which everybody's capable of doing. So there's nothing in this tournament that would surprise me. The good thing about the tournament this year is if you lose a game, everybody's RPI is in a pretty good spot. I think our lowest RPI team in the tournament is in, I don't know, maybe still in the 60s.
Right.
So a loss doesn't kill you as bad this year as it has in previous seasons. I think we lost a game last year to a team that was in the hundreds, and that had a lot to do with why we didn't, 2 years ago I meant, it has a lot to do with why we didn't make a regional that year, because we suffered a bad loss and dropped, I think, 10 spots in one day. So hopefully that won't happen to anyone this year.
And then obviously tournament baseball is much different than the regular season. Do you enjoy coaching tournament baseball, or is it a pressure packed situation for the coaches?
I enjoy it probably for different reasons than other coaches enjoy it. I enjoy it because I love college baseball and I go to all the other games.
Yeah.
I get to watch, you know, Kansas play Kansas State and, you know, Oklahoma State play whoever they're playing, because I just love college baseball, and it's fun to watch the other teams when they're not trying to beat me.
Right.
I can enjoy those games, and that'll probably be a little snippet of my retirement, going out and just watching and enjoying college baseball.
Good deal. Thank you, Coach.
John, if you want to ask a question.
When the decision was made to move the tournament up, were the coaches consulted on this, and was any discussion about, hey, this is going to be an issue lining our pitching up with the tournament? Was that brought up when all this was discussed?
Yeah, of course it was brought up, but the little Big 12 baseball coaches have nothing to do with the outcome of that. But I think we all feel the same way about it, that it's a super, super stressful situation when you're trying to win a regional next weekend. And, you know, this week you have to throw pitchers on short rest, which could potentially affect our ability to win regionals across the Big 12.
Affects all the teams that are going
Every
to get the
single
tournament.
one of us.
Yep. Thank you.
Mike.
Yeah, Coach, a lot being talked about the rotation, obviously just playing TCU and now playing TCU again. Any advantages or disadvantages of facing a team you just closed the series with that almost came back against you, that very hungry to get revenge and almost excited to be playing you right away as you start tournament play?
Yeah,
Like
you know,
that, not like that?
when that happens, the team who lost the series has a little bit of momentum going into the series because they're playing as the underdog, so to speak. And you could get your team to play as the underdog every game, you'd win most games. So they're going to be playing to prove something. They're fighting for their tournament lives. So we're going to get their best effort from the first pitch. You know, when you beat a team or win a series or sweep somebody, just naturally you get a little bit overconfident and feel like it's going to be easier than it actually is. So that's what we got to try and keep our guys focused on and get them to play like we're the underdog.
And then is there anything you're trying to do or being conscious of, or even a different strategy because it's tournament baseball with the bullpen and the relief pitching? Just because, as we just mentioned, almost squandered the game to end the series in TCU. That's happened a few times this year where it almost occurred or it did. That would be, one of the more painstaking ways to get eliminated or lose in a tournament or even in regional if you would end up squandering a game like that. Any way to avoid that, or is that just how the cookie's been crumbling for the bullpen this
Yeah,
year?
it's easy to look at a game like we had on Saturday and say we almost gave it away, but if it wasn't for that, Luke Lyman wouldn't have stepped up. And now
Yeah.
we have a new guy that we feel like can get outs at the end of games. So it's super easy to look at every game like that and describe it that way. But there have been games we've won like that. And you always, when you lose a game, everybody always says, man, we should have won that one. We should have won that one. But there are games that you win, and nobody ever looks at those games and say, yeah, actually, we should have lost that one. But there's been a couple of those this year, too. So we haven't squandered anything. We've played our tails off this whole season and put ourselves in an unbelievable position. So we put the guy in the game at the time that we feel like is the best guy for the game. And I trust every one of our players in any moment that could arise. So, yeah, we're just gonna, like I said, play it pitch by pitch.
Anybody else have any questions? Not? All right. Thank you, everybody.